Well, good morning, Lake Christian. Would you like some fries with that? First, read in depth every scripture. Fries with that. I've been doing some of the drive-through Bible here. This is a shot of my recycling bin out in front of my car, next to my garage, where I have some storage of what I call my museum, mostly memories of the past. Nothing of any real true monetary value, but memory value. And the recycling bin, bringing up old things, renewing, reusing, and whatnot. I figure it's kind of an apropos way to start this video. You know, there's a lot of biblical stuff I'd like to talk about, and but it's like, how do I start these videos? What do I say? What is the best topic? I mean, reading the Bible is good, and it's something I want to do more of on video. I have read through the entire Bible at one point, and to be honest, because I'm not a reader, it's been more audio-visual. I've listened to several Christian ministries. So there's a video that I'm going to be doing here soon, and it's about the history of Twin Cities radio stations. Now, for most of you who live elsewhere in the country and elsewhere in the world for that matter, probably don't care much about what radio stations or TV stations or media in the Twin Cities, but it's where I grew up, and it kind of, like, it's a type of history I want to preserve. Same thing with the garage. When we moved from Minnesota, we brought some stuff down in a few different trips, and I had a trailer that I had that was supposed to be part of a business that ended up not happening for a host of reasons. And, in Minnesota, at one point, we had two different houses. The house that my mom and I lived in, and the house that Grandma lived in. And right now, I'm 46. My mom is 80. My mom lives with me. No, I don't live with her in the sense of I live in the basement and don't have anything better to do. I work full time and I pay most of the bills, but I believe it's biblical to take care of your parents. And one of the things I definitely want to share more about over time is how I think we need to be a little more communal and more family focused than we are. I think everybody living in their mansion, chasing to get, catching up with the Joneses and all that is, I won't necessarily say unbiblical in the fact that it's a sin. I just don't think it's how we should focus our energy in life. And I have a lot of thoughts about that, but being in business and whatnot. Uh, so I'm going to be doing the Twin Cities radio history next, but I wanted to talk a little bit about why I'm doing it, and I think I'm going to call this one "Losing My Religion." Now, I am not losing my religion. I firmly believe that the Bible is 100% true. The things that we don't understand, our limited understanding, contribute to not fully grasping every point of the Bible. Sometimes there may be some things lost in translation, but I believe overall that God has preserved His Word for the last 2,000 years of the New Testament and 2,000 or more years prior to that. Of the Israelites and coming out of Egypt, and whatever stories are stories and exaggerations and filling in the blank and whatnot, I think that most of the Bible is exactly as it is written. And I think is it Occam's razor, I believe, most of the time the simplest explanation is the truest. And, people have read a lot into the Bible, and there are a lot of questions about some of the more poetic things and some of the, like Daniel and Revelation and some of the other prophecies and even some of the things that Jesus said. are hard to understand, and people second guess, and they debate on what the millennium will be, when Jesus will come back, what the details around that will be. And I do have my opinions, not real strong opinions in some areas, because I don't think that's really what my focus should be. I think that a lot of Christians end up focusing on reading the Bible and becoming head smart and not living a Christ like existence. And like the rainbow, Roy G. Biv, the 7-color rainbow, the promise that God made to the people as they came off the ark, that he would never flood the world again. I want to make it clear that that's the rainbow I'm talking about. But that was a total squirrel, sort of. But the thing is this: you have there's the different colors of the spectrum of light, and all the colors together, the visible and invisible, and the sound waves, everything is kind of in that spectrum. And it's like the example that Jesus gives, and Paul even expands on, the body of Christ. Jesus is the head. We're all components of the body. Some are eyes, some are fingers. We need heart and lungs, and the ear needs the toe, and the toe needs the ear, and the eye and the finger and the heart. All that works together in a harmonious, symbiotic way. And I think we forget that sometimes. So that's why I really try and focus on reading the Bible and living a Christ-like way. Maybe I'll talk more in other videos about some of the things I do, but I look at, the pond has ripples. I don't know if I'm ever going to accomplish some of these big ideas I have, big businesses and whatnot. As much as I'd like to, I'm getting older. I don't have a lot of money, and a lot of these things, even to whatever degree they do happen, will be a lot smaller than my grandiose vision that I first had when I was 12, 13, or 16, or 18, or anything like that. But the thing is, people need to have a purpose for being. I've always thought that by now I would have a family. I don't. I have my mom to take care of, and that's wonderful. I think that's a very biblical thing to do. But I don't have a wife, and I don't have children. And, about 40, I became okay with that. And, I've never been good at playing all those dating games and whatnot. And, I'm got a little bit of a second chin growing here. Maybe not as much as some people do. And, teeth came out, but when I was younger, I probably was never the purtiest in the world, but I thought I was an okay average guy. But, I just never found Mrs. Right. And, but because of that, because I was not in business the way I wanted to be, and because I wasn't married, I spent more time with my nephew and nieces when they were young. They're older now. They range in ages from 16 to 23. And I had a hand. Now, granted, their parents were around, so it's not like I was the only influence or whatever, but I was I don't want to say a third parent, but a third adult that helped have a role in their life. And there were some other kids, kids that they knew, and some other kids that I knew. One of them who watched some of my videos and even commented was one of those kids that I knew from a different family group. So I think part of my experience in helping to be in the lives of those kids, if I had my own wife and my own kids, maybe I wouldn't have been. I don't know if these people will accomplish some kind of great thing, or if their children will, but there's a story of a man who killed his wife and almost killed his children. And now that's a sad story. That's a bad thing. So I don't want anybody to emulate it or think it's good. But the thing that stopped him from killing his children, what made this man snap and whatnot, I don't know. And I don't even remember the exact news story, but I remember hearing about it. It was probably on like a Christian program. Maybe it was like Focus on the Family. Maybe it was one of those half-hour ministry programs. I don't know. I don't remember. But the man, and maybe it was a Paul Harvey rest of the story. Maybe. I don't know. But what kept him from hurting the kids was he remembered his third grade teacher. And I think it was Billy. I could be wrong on this. You're a good boy, Billy. You're a good boy. And that stuck with him. And at the right time, now unfortunately his wife was already deceased, but it stopped him from taking the future from his children. And, this man turned himself in, went to jail, etc., etc. And, so you never know the impact you might have on somebody in a small way. Like I say, the ripples in a pond. But, earlier I was talking about the rainbow. Everybody has a vision. Everybody, God gives different people different visions. And I think it's bad if we say that, well, if you get a particular vision, and I'm just going to use the rainbow as an example. You've got red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, and violet. Maybe somebody gets a vision in indigo, and somebody else gets a vision in orange, and there's yet somebody else who gets a vision in yellow, and again, this is just an example. I'm not saying that people get, colored visions or whatever, but it's really easy to think that all we gotta do is just do this one thing, and if everybody does it, well, the fact is that there is a need for people to go out and witness. And, Jesus commands us in Matthew 28, go out and make disciples. But God also tells us to love, to help others, and there's other aspects of ministry. Some are good teachers and preachers. Some are good in the missions field. Some people are good at helping the poor and ministries of that nature. Different people have different gifts, and a lot of people, they work a job, and they in their job minister to people in the way that they know how. God plants everybody somewhere for a reason, and it's easy sometimes to think, woe is me, or how unfortunate my life is. And there are people who die when they're 30 or 40. There are people who lose their children that are 8 or 12 or whatever, and sadness and bad things happen. People go bankrupt. Sometimes it's through no fault of their own. Maybe it's a medical emergency, maybe a business. They tried it, and that's kind of my story. I tried a business. I don't want to get too focused on woe is me, because I'm trying to make another point. Because remember, I started with the memory garage and whatnot. I said I'm calling this losing my religion. Now look, people need to have a feeling of value. They need to have a feeling of worth. And I think part of the being an outrageous Christ-like lover, as Greg Boyd from Woodland Hills back in 2003, 2004, 2005, in that time frame, all of his love sermons taught is, we need to have a good attitude. Just in general, we need to, Christ said, the two commandments. First, love God with all your heart, mind, and soul, and then you love your neighbors, you love yourself, and there's other, golden rule type of things where, and it's not called the golden rule in the Bible, it's just principles of how you treat each other. 1 Corinthians 13 is a love passage, and I think we, as Christians, have an obligation to understand and respect all people, and that it's good, it is important to save people. And for me, salvation includes being baptized. I could go down a whole rabbit trail on that. I've did another video, and I'm going to do more. I did the Acts 18 and 19 video. But to be baptized is part of it. And you know what? Even if it's not, it's an some people say it's an outward sign of an inward action. And if that's all it is, why not do it? If you're healthy enough to get baptized, get baptized. If you are a true born again believer. So I'm not going to argue those points right now, but when you have when you're born again, the classic example is, saying the simple words, and that's all it takes. And let's just, for sake of argument, say that's all it takes. Jesus, I am a sinner. I want to repent. I want to change. I want to be a believer. Amen. And you are now in the kingdom of Christ. Regardless of if it's that or baptism or whatever, that some people experience great magical changes in their life. They were into drugs and alcohol, and then they turn on a dime and they're not. And there are people who've been sick who have been healed, and there have been people who, by believing in Christ, has changed a lot. But for most people, it's not going to be that awesome or dynamic, or you're still going to be the same person. You're still going to have the same thoughts. Yeah, hopefully over time that will change. But there needs to be, especially for young people, the thing that I worry about, and I see this like when I talk to young people and, like at my job and other places, if you don't, I can say, you know what, you need Jesus and all this. But if people don't see, to use a medical, if people don't know they're sick, they're not going to search out the cure. And it's like, or if the house is on fire, the people are sitting down in the basement family room watching a movie, playing board games, whatever. They're enjoying their time. And, meanwhile, the attic's on fire. It's just a small fire. If the fire department gets there, maybe they can put it out, et cetera, et cetera. But if they don't know the house is on fire, they're just going to be sitting there until either the heat, the flames, or the smoke, or some combination of all three reach them, and it's too late. And maybe there will still be time enough to reflect, but the flames, the heat, the smoke prevents their escape. Maybe the house is collapsing in around them. And so it's super important to become a believer and follower of Christ and to become a disciple. I'm not trying to minimize that. But what I'm trying to say is we need to have a message that reaches out to people, that helps explain why it's important, but we also need to help them change their lives. Now, that may be some kind of AA meeting or, whatever equivalent that churches have. There's a continuing recovery program that my church has, and other churches. It's not just a Church of Christ thing. It's a more general program. And it's about helping people recover from, drinking, smoking, porn, whatever addictions people might have. The program has some options to help people. Now, different programs at different churches may vary a little bit, but it's a nationally syndicated program where people go and it's a support group, kind of like AA, double A, excuse me. Anyways, so the point is this: how do we make the lives of people better? And I think we need to focus more on that. We need to outreach in small ways, help our neighbors, help our family, help our friends. Jesus said if somebody asks to borrow money, give it to them. No, I grant it, there's a time when maybe you're enabling people, or if you don't have enough money for your own needs. I get that. And we got to weigh all that. But if you can help another person, just spending time listening to them, we're all busy and, we play video games, we watch movies, we do our own thing. And, sometimes, and I'm guilty of this myself, I don't always want to talk on the phone to people. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. But reaching out to people, having conversations, may be enough. I would like to see more families, if not living in this, ideally like the one of the stories, the Homestead Heroes that I'm working on for a radio drama, has like a family buying this old mansion, and there's some outbuildings and the property and whatnot. So kind of like a soap opera, there's a lot of people living in one house. That's the kind of thing that I would like to see more of, where people, instead of putting their resources towards, working harder and having to individually pay for everything, I would like to see, to the degree possible, people living together. Parents into their old age living with their adult children and being cared for, like I'm doing with my mom. I would like to see, high school kids and college kids, instead of going off and finding their own place right away, staying at home longer. Now, I realize there's a need for privacy, and some houses, in some situations, it's not as doable as others, but I think we need to move more towards that. If you have the property or there's homes available in the neighborhood, and you can't live together, maybe either build or buy separate homes, but stay close to one another. Now, I'm living down here in Kansas, and my family comes from Minnesota. And, parts of my family, things got bad and we kind of separated. Other parts of my family, things are good, but just, when my grandfather was alive, and even after that, he died when I was 8. My grandma, my mom, and I used to go places more often. But, before I was born, they used to do a lot more of that. And, that's something that's missed. So I moved out to Kansas because my mom wanted to be warmer, in a warmer climate than cold Minnesota. And, there's some business opportunities. Maybe the radio market potentially here is better for some of the stuff I want to do, hopefully in the near future versus way, way out in the future. But what I'm trying to say in this whole losing my religion video is this, is that I do believe God has a plan for you and me. We're all human beings. We're all created in His image. We all have unsurpassable worth. And that may not be apparent to you right now. And, I can say, things like keep the faith and whatnot. And I do believe that. But I want you to feel that, I want you to have hope. Even though it's taken this long for me to get a business going, and a profitable business that stays open, let me clarify, there's a reason. And I think that my life, working on Marriage Builders, I've helped people in an indirect way. I wasn't the person giving the advice, but it's something I did. Helping my nephew and nieces was something I did that, it's not this big, huge thing, but just being there, just listening to them, just helping them out with the little things was a good thing. Driving bus, you can't, in the public school system, there's limits on what you can say with, faith and religion and even politics. But to the degree possible, you talk to the kids that are open to being talked to. And part of that is listening to their little stories and what they are interested in. But then, you have a conversation with them. Obviously, there's safety, you gotta drive the bus. But when the bus is stopped, or if there's a kid sitting right behind you at their stops when they get off and on, just start by saying good morning and have a good afternoon. If that's all you do, that may be just that little positive thing that they need. Treating them like human beings, because one, they are, but, doing it in such a way that they feel they are human and that they are valued and whatnot. Things to consider. I know this video is probably a little more rambly, but the thing is, I've had to pause in doing some videos because it's like, I want to make sure I'm doing this right. And there's a lot of things I would like to say and a lot of stories I'd like to tell. And there's a lot, but it's like, why should anybody listen to me? What's the purpose of this? I have my doubts. I have my questions. And, if it's just me reaching a few people, that's fine. if the business I start, the flea market, or if I ever dabble in restaurants again, or the radio, if I just get one flea market or one restaurant or one radio station and I make the lives of the people who are in that one business, or maybe it's more than one business, maybe it's multiple locations of each business, I'm probably, I think of Disney. ABC is for sale potentially. I don't have the money, in probably won't have the money that, $8 billion, I think is what they say ABC is worth, and that doesn't even include the TV stations. I don't have $1 billion. Even if I won the lottery or something, best case scenario with some of these outrageous prizes, you might get 500 million, and that's a lot of money, but it's not the type of money to buy a broadcast network and all its TV stations. You might buy a lot of radio stations, but anyways, people need a purpose in life. And there is one thing that I also wanted to bring up, and I might do a separate video on this also. I'm still trying to figure out exactly what the whole point and aim of Lake Christian is, other than me rambling on. I mean, reading the Bible, the drive-through Bible, definitely a big part of it. Telling stories and whatnot definitely will be more of a part of it. But it along the lines of having a hope and an identity. There's that TV show and the book series that's based around The Handmaid's Tale, how a future society, women are basically devalued and basically sex slaves, and this religious authority makes them into these servant-like, no free will thing, whatever. And, okay, I have so many thoughts on that. One, I don't think that will ever happen. I don't think women were as oppressed as the woke crowd would like you to think they were in the past either. Now, there was things like, women, like, I don't know, the 20s and whatever, a woman couldn't get a bank account without her husband or her father. Now, I don't know if there was any exceptions for single women or whatever. As far as I know, there wasn't. But why was there such a policy? I mean, we know from our society that girls and women excel in math and science. Girls regularly do good in high school and go on to college at a higher rate than boys. I don't know what the statistics are right now, but many colleges have, 60, 70% girls to 30, 40% boys, because the education system we have now is really structured better for girls and boys, because boys tend to be a little more rambunctious, and not that girls can't be rambunctious, but there is a book. I know I'm squirreling all over the place, but the thing is, there's this book, Women Are Like Spaghetti, Men Are Like Waffles, and a Christian couple wrote this book. It's probably still available if you looked on Amazon or local bookstore or whatever. And basically, it was kind of their equivalent to Women Are From Venus, Men Are From Mars. And it's like men and women are made differently. We have different abilities and different talents. It's a biological fact that women have less muscle mass. Now, there are going to be exceptions to the rule, but generally, women cannot lift the same pounds as men. They're not made because their bodies are made to be pregnant. Their bodies are made differently. Now, that doesn't mean that's all they are and all they're worth. And no, that's wrong. I think we need to understand historically that, most people lived and worked on a farm. Men and women, boys and girls all had tasks to do. Now, the tasks that the men and boys had were probably different from the ones that the girls and the women had, but, we didn't have, for many years, electricity, running water, even in some cases. There was the well, but you had to go out and get water at the well. We didn't have gas stoves. Their wood had to be chopped, and, it took all day to make food. So there was a different life. And I don't think, look, I don't have any proof for this other than, things I've heard here and there, but I don't think there was ever an intentional plan to say, you know what, women have no place in the workforce, because the workforce was at home. For one thing, raising children is a very important task. And I think both men and women, okay, this is another rabbit trail here. I think our modern society, we probably work less than we have historically with, sun up to sundown. But, when you work at home and you could pace yourself, and maybe you had some days off from the weather and, before and after harvest and whatnot. But look, 40 hours a week, working 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, that's kind of the norm. You still need to get 8 hours of sleep. So if you're working for 8 hours and you're sleeping for 8 hours, that leaves about 8 hours left. Well, you still gotta, take a shower, change your clothes, brush your teeth, and do all those type of things. And it takes time to get up and get ready. It takes time to get to bed. Most people have to drive a half hour to work and from work, and you may not get paid for your lunch, so you're there for 8.5 hours. So you factor all this in. By the time most people, they're lucky if they have 6 hours to themselves. And then, you gotta cook food, cut the grass, change the light bulb, fix this or that, and if you can't fix something, you have to pay for it to be fixed. But then you need to go and get groceries and do all these errands. So life is not hard as it used to be, but there's complications. And I don't think, Christian men, probably men in general, but, most of us have wives. All of us have mothers. Most have daughters. And I don't think any man wants to see a woman oppressed or have less opportunities. And now, somebody who's truly Christ-like and loving, certainly that would not be the case. Now, people who, and there are people who have mental illnesses, anger issues, control issues, and there are reasons why people do what they do. But any well-adjusted man is going to want advice from his wife, and hopefully vice versa. I hate the term mansplaining, because men, I'm doing it right here, I like to talk. I like to explain stuff. And if a friend of mine, a woman friend of mine, a relative, whatever, I want to talk to her and give her advice. I mean, if she asks a question, I'm going to answer it. And I don't think that she doesn't have the ability to figure it out on her own, but I think the whole mansplaining thing and men being afraid to be men is a bad thing. Okay, so I don't know. Let's see. We're at 33 minutes. It's been probably more than I should have made this video, but I'm trying to find all these things in my heart. Like I said, I can't mind meld you, but I want you to stay strong. I want you to, if you want to listen to me read you the Bible, great. I suggest you read the Bible for yourself, audio Bibles. If there's a Christian ministry program that you like, I recommend going to church, but I don't recommend that's all you do. And while I don't have this, proof positive God exists, I do believe there is a lot that, science is, and history is beginning to prove the Bible gradually. And I think people who are the hardened atheist are, they think there's, science or the Bible. There's no room in the middle. I don't think that's the case. But don't lose your faith. There is no simple answer. But, the best thing you can do is, if you need help, ask people. You may get some no's or some I don't knows or whatever, but, if you don't start, it won't happen. And if you're able to help people, help people. When it comes to small business, this isn't exactly, Christian small business just. I think there is kind of a need for us to form our own communities and to be self-ready in case of whatever emergency, but that's a whole nother topic. I kind of covered that in the whole Y2K video that I did. But anyways, so here's the deal. I get you want to save, and I'm using this as an analogy, but I think it's also true. There's the big box stores can probably offer things cheaper than the little mom and pop stores. You're probably I myself am guilty of all of the above. Now I try and think of supporting small businesses now and then, but it's easy to go to the national franchise restaurants. It's easy to go to the big box store. It's probably cheaper in many cases, but I think it's good to look outside of what you're used to and look for small businesses to go to and to support. And, if there's a different company that is a better choice, maybe they're out there. But if you don't look, you don't find them. The same thing is true with people needing help or whatever. Start talking with people. And I'm not good at that sometimes myself. If I'm in a group of people I know, I'm really good at talking. But in people I don't know as much, it takes a while for me to, start going and whatever. Just look out for one another. Read 1 Corinthians 13, the love chapter. And don't be a banging gong. Do it all with love. And, just relax, enjoy life, know that God has a plan, even if it's not apparent to you now. Someday, when we go home to our true home in heaven, we will learn what God's plan is. But endure to the end. And I guess that's all I have to say. I hope to do another video here soon. Until then, have a picnic, have fries with that. First, read in depth every scripture. Don't just jump to conclusions in the Bible, and read the full context. Don't tulip. Tulip is a weed. It's true. And be baptized. I really strongly suggest you read Acts 18 and 19 and be always jovial. Catch you on the flip side.